fighting for the faithful. Vice President Mike Pence highlights the Trump administration's record defending religious freedom.
These Catholics are protesting at the United States Capitol on behalf of detained children at the border. I'm Jason Calvi. I'll have their story coming up. Re-election rally. President Trump talked with supporters last night in North Carolina. What he said about the fight for the unborn. And saving the family. A Catholic priest tells us how we can transform our loved ones by sharing meals. On EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, July 18th, 2019. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you for joining us for News from a Catholic Perspective. I'm Wyatt Goolsby. From China to the Americas, Vice President Mike Pence tackles some of the greatest threats to religious freedom around the world today. He spoke at the second annual Religious Freedom Ministerial this morning during the final day. He had especially harsh words for the leader of Venezuela.
In Venezuela, the dictator Nicolas Maduro is using his so-called anti-hate laws to prosecute Catholic clergy who speak out against his brutal regime. Nicolas Maduro has brought nothing but misery to the people of Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro is a dictator with no legitimate claim to power, and Nicolas Maduro must go.
Pence says the U.S. does not support the Maduro regime. Instead, they acknowledge Juan Guaido as the legitimate president. The Maduro government passed a hate law in 2017 that carries prison sentences between 10 and 20 years. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo also spoke this morning. He applauded the countries in attendance for defending religious freedom.
We are committed and we are united, and our voices are growing stronger and stronger, and this is indeed just the beginning. We're here because each of us believes that religious freedom must be upheld, protected, and advanced.
The Secretary said there were hundreds more attendees this year compared with last year's gathering. He also called it the largest human rights ministerial ever held by the State Department. The American ambassador to the Holy See says the U.S. government and the Vatican will co-host an upcoming symposium to highlight how faith-based groups can help protect religious freedom. Ambassador Callista Gingrich says both countries already work together on many key issues.
Safeguarding human rights, defending religious freedom, mediating conflict, and providing humanitarian assistance.
Ambassador Gingrich welcomed one of the Holy See's top foreign diplomats, Bishop Paul Gallagher, last night to a reception. They marked the 35th anniversary of formal diplomatic relations between the U.S. and the Vatican. The speakers last night noted the long-standing bilateral relationship that was formalized in 1984 by President Ronald Reagan and St. John Paul II. A group of Catholics protest at the Capitol. They're urging the government to do a better job treating migrants arrested at the border. And some of those protesters knew they risked arrest. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi was there. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Wyatt. Capitol Hill police tell me they arrested 70 protesters. It happened right below me in this rotunda full of cameras. Now, last year, people condemned the Trump administration for separating about 2,700 kids from their families. There's also been recent deaths of immigrants at the border. Now, Border Patrol says since October, they've arrested 450,000 families. Most of those people were kids. Priests, sisters, and lay people huddle in this Senate building under the watchful eye of these officers.
This is the United States Capitol Police.
They're risking arrest to send this message.
We believe that our faith, that the gospel of Jesus calls us, he welcomed the children to come to him. So we want to be here to support these children.
Children caught at the border.
This is your second warning.
What would you say to people that say, well, you shouldn't get arrested? I mean, you got to follow the laws of the land. What would you say to those people?
Yeah, well, it's sometimes we think that God's law precedes the human laws. So we'll be very respectful to the police.
So Franciscan Sister Mary Lucy is arrested.
We shall not be moved.
But police moved them out. Others not risking arrest join in with prayers.
We're here to support the change in policy so that people can be respected with the dignity which God has conceded to all of us.
Mother of four Elizabeth Tran watched her fellow Catholics break the law.
I've done the March for Life, but not this type, and it's been a wonderful witness to my 12-year-old son who has never seen something like this before either. So he's learning about our American rights for having the opportunity for civil disobedience.
Tonight, those arrested at the Capitol are free, while others at the border are still behind bars. I asked my Twitter followers what they made of today's protests and arrests, and there was a lot of skepticism. Novogod 19 says the Bible doesn't advocate for open borders, and Rate Chelli tweeted, and I want to read this to you, it's ridiculous, farcical, using the noble Catholic name for strictly partisan political posturing. Wyatt?
Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi reporting. Thanks, Jason. The House of Representatives shoots down an attempt by some Democrats to impeach President Trump. The proposal was brought forward by Texas Democrat Al Green. Within his own party, it failed by 137 votes to 95. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was among those who voted against the measure. Thus far, she has prevented a stampede toward impeachment, in part because polls indicate Americans are not in favor of it. Democrats in the House vote to hold two top Trump administration officials in contempt. The measure last night passed along party lines. It cites Attorney General William Barr and Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross for failing to comply with subpoenas related to a citizenship question on the 2020 census. White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham slams the move, saying it's a lawless attempt to harass the president and his administration. This week, President Trump welcomed more than 24 survivors of religious persecution to the Oval Office. Tabrina Betz-Temraz, a Christian Iranian, urged the president to put pressure on the Iranian regime.
We would appreciate if you mention my family, but also Christian persecution in Iran, holding a negotiation with our
They're in jail for what reason? Because they're
Christian
pastors?
pastors preaching the gospel.
I will. I'm going to get the information. I will.
The president said those fighting for religious freedom are making strides and promised his support. A Trump rally erupts in chants of "send her back," referring to a U.S. congresswoman who was born in Somalia. The president sparked controversy when he suggested she should leave America. White House correspondent Mark Irons is following the fallout. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Wyatt. The president is now distancing himself from his supporters' chants to send back Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, though he first implied Omar and other congresswomen of color should go back to where they came from. Democrats have denounced the president's remarks as racist. Omar calls President Trump a fascist, while the president contends Representative Omar is anti-Semitic and anti-America.
President Trump often makes headlines for his controversial words. Last night, it was his supporters.
Obviously and importantly, Omar has a history of launching vicious anti-Semitic screeds.
The president was criticizing Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, one of the 4 Democrats he says should leave the country if they don't like it. Omar says she isn't going anywhere.
That is supposed to be a country where we allow democratic debate and dissent to take place. And so this is not about me. This is about us fighting for what this country truly should be.
And now President Trump distancing himself from his supporters' "send her back" chant.
I was not happy with it. I disagree with it. But again, I didn't say that. They did.
But Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer puts the blame on the president for criticizing the 4 congresswomen of color in the first place, saying the president once again whipped up a toxic brew of racism, xenophobia, and nativism. And one Democrat even tried to start impeachment proceedings against President Trump.
The resolution, how stupid is that?
But last night, the House rejected it.
I want to thank those Democrats because many of them voted for us.
But no thanks for Democrats as the president railed on the party's support of abortion.
Virtually every top Democrat also now supports late-term abortion, ripping babies straight from the mother's womb, right up until the moment of birth.
President Trump has asked Congress to prohibit late-term abortions. And this week, a Trump administration rule keeping federal family planning dollars from abortion providers also went into effect. Wyatt?
White House correspondent Mark Irons reporting. Thanks, Mark. President Trump says an American warship destroyed an Iranian drone. The incident occurred in the Strait of Hormuz. The president says it is the latest hostile action by Tehran, and he's calling on other countries to condemn Iran's attempts to disrupt the waterway in the Persian Gulf. Officials in the Philippines file criminal complaints against the country's vice president and 4 Catholic bishops. They are accused of trying to destabilize President Rodrigo Duterte's administration. The vice president and bishops deny the allegations. The Vatican is denying it interfered in the debate over the remains of General Francisco Franco in Spain. The papal representative in Madrid earlier this summer rebuked the socialist government over its attempt to move the general's body. Spain responded by sending a formal protest letter to the Holy See. Vatican officials say the nuncio was simply expressing his own opinion. Pope Francis names British-born Matteo Bruni as the new Vatican spokesman. Bruni joined the Vatican press office in 2009. Previously, he organized logistics for media during papal trips. Bruni takes over from Alessandro Gisotti, who became interim spokesman following the sudden departure of Greg Burke in December. Later this month, on July 30th, advocates will mark World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. The organization Religious in Europe Networking Against Trafficking and Exploitation works to rehabilitate victims, stop sexual and labor exploitation, and highlight the problems of slavery and forced organ harvesting. The group has extended its network to 31 countries in Europe with 136 anti-trafficking networks. Joining us from Rome is Sister Monica Chikwe of Hospitaller Sisters of Mercy. She herself is from Nigeria. Sister, welcome into the broadcast. You work in Rome to help trafficked Nigerian women. The UN says most Nigerian women arriving to European countries by sea have been victims of sexual exploitation. How do you help these women heal? And in your opinion, what's the root problem to stop all this human trafficking?
Yeah, what we do to help the women, when we help them, we have many sisters working against human trafficking here in different capacities. So what we do, we recruit them from the road, or when they call us that they want to come out, we keep them in our safe shelters where they are being rehabilitated. After the rehabilitation, we have to do the reintegration into the society. By reintegrating them, we need to give them their legal status. And giving them legal status means giving them their names, their proper name, their proper age, which many a time the traffickers they tamper with.
Well, last month, Nigerian police helped free a Catholic priest who was abducted by Fulani herders, Muslim tribes. What is daily life like for Catholics in Nigeria?
This is a hurting and a burning issue in Nigeria today. The insurgence of Fulani herdsmen in Nigeria is bringing a huge amount of violence. And the priest, thank God, he is rescued and released alive. But in Nigeria today, every day hundreds of Christians are being slaughtered, are being killed because of the Fulani herdsmen. Because in Nigeria, they want every state, we have 13 states in Nigeria, and they want every state to have a grazing ground for the Fulani herdsmen. And you know, in Nigeria, many places in Nigeria don't have enough land. And the little farmland people have, poor people have, they will send cows there, and the cows will destroy the farmland. And it is a big problem because nothing is being done.
Terrorism is a problem. Boko Haram, the Islamist extremists in Nigeria, have conducted terrorist attacks on religious and political groups, including kidnapping schoolgirls in 2014 and 2018. Do you think there is a real threat of genocide to Christians in Nigeria?
Yes. I say it with all amount of alacrity that there is, and is going on silently. And that is what is amazing me, is that something that is ravaging the life of Christians. Every day churches are being burnt. Every day Christians are being killed. Nobody is talking about it. The government, as if it's normal. That is a global silence against, around an issue that is really consuming and claiming lives of Christians. Instead, they are busy debating on grazing ground for cows, as if Christians now, cows are more important than the lives of Christians in Nigeria today. In fact, I would love to use this venue to plead to the international community to intervene now before we burst into war. because there's an incumbent war in Nigeria today, as it is today. That is, I'm pleading to the world powers, especially America, China, all the world powers. Nigeria is a member of the UN. Nigeria has signed some convention against terrorism. So, and he is bound to keep those things he signed. If the government and the president of Nigeria is not capable of controlling terrorism in Nigeria, the international body is bound to take necessary measures before, as they said, prevention is better than cure, because Nigeria is in a very bad shape as I'm talking now.
Well, it is such an important subject, and like I say, so important that we bring what's happening in Nigeria to light, and as a result, all of the Nigerian women who are fleeing from persecution. Sister Monica Chikwe, Hospitaller Sisters of Mercy, thank you so much for talking with us. Coming up, Pope Francis appoints a new bishop for Des Moines, Iowa. Welcome back. I'm Wyatt Goolsby. The plight of Christians in Iraq continues to be an area of concern and receives special attention at this week's Ministerial to advance religious freedom. Minority religious communities, including Yazidis in the region, continue to face threats from terrorists and militias. Joining me now is Loya Mikhail, Senior Advisor for the Iraq Haven Project. Loya, welcome back to the broadcast.
Thank you for having me back.
What are the conditions? It's been almost a year, by the way, since you've been here in studio. Bring me up to speed. What are conditions like for Christians living in Iraq right now?
I mean, the conditions basically stay the same where it was before, after liberating the ISIS from those areas. But what USAID and State Department and administration has been done, there have been done some changes. They've been allocated some money for that. But the process is very slow because of the security that we face now. So people still think not to go back to their own homes and towns, and they also think to emigrate outside of Iraq because of the conditions. But if you provide such a conditions for them, school, infrastructure, jobs, they will definitely think to go back again. And the thing that they really concern them is security thing, you know, because if you have a better security, we can speed the process of building an infrastructure and things like that. So I hope the USAID will do more. I hope the administration will help us more. It's been unprecedented with this administration for helping the minorities, particularly the Christians and Yazidis communities. Mm-hmm. So we are so grateful for that. And the conditions are, the number of the Christians every day shrinks every mm-hmm. day. So we are in hope that if we do something in the future, in very near future, at least we can bring back those people who are in Turkey, in Jordan, in Lebanon, so they can go back and build their communities and start again.
You mentioned the money. Today, the USAID announced that they are going to provide an additional $27 million in humanitarian assistance towards those ethnic and religious minorities in the Nineveh Plains, Western Nineveh Province. For people who are unfamiliar, tell me a little bit about that region in particular.
The reason more money has been allocated and why this region needs more money, because ISIS stayed there over 2 years. And what they did, they completely destroyed churches, synagogues, mosques, everything that was on that area belongs to any faith, you know. And if you look, there's no water, there's no streets, everything. So that's why USAID is more committed to allocate more money, because nobody from the central government, unfortunately, or maybe regional government as well, is coming to see the situation, the dire situation of those minorities on the ground, which they really do need the help. They need the money more. 27 is good, but I hope will be 270 in next step, 70 million. Really, to build infrastructure, to bring those community backs, you need more sources. Yeah. I hope Iraqi government can jump in, can send somebody and look to the conditions of those Christians and minorities of how can we do something more.
And that's why it's so important that we continue to highlight here in the U.S. the situation there. Loya Mikhail, Senior Advisor to the Iraq Haven Project, thanks so much for taking time from the Ministerial to come over here and talk with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
The head of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has been invited to speak at the NAACP convention Sunday in Detroit. It's the latest sign of a growing partnership between the Mormon Church and the organization. Last year, the leaders from both groups held a meeting. Afterward, they called for greater racial harmony. African Americans make up about 3% of the 6.6 million Mormons in the U.S. Pope Francis names Father William Johnson as the new bishop of Des Moines, Iowa. Father Johnson had been an associate professor at Loras College, a Catholic liberal arts school in Dubuque. And the 59-year-old replaces Bishop Richard Pates, whose resignation at the age of 75 was recently accepted by the Holy Father. Tonight on EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, Republican Senator Ben Sasse from Nebraska says there appears to be little room in the Democratic Party for pro-lifers.
The Democratic Party is caught in the grips of the radically anti-baby, pro-abortion abortion industry, and it's just a tragic thing. I think we need to.
You can see the entire interview tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern on EWTN. Visit EWTN.com for other airing times. Up next, a Catholic priest tells us why it's so important to eat meals as a family. Welcome back. A Catholic priest and professional cook is encouraging families to strengthen bonds by sharing regular family meals. In his book, Saving the Family, The Transformative Power of Sharing Meals with People You Love, Father Leo Patalinghug, author and host of EWTN's Savoring Our Faith, shares his recipe for reconnecting families to each other and with God. And Father Leo joins me now by Skype from Columbus, Ohio. Father Leo, welcome back to the broadcast. You've been working with families as a part of your ministry since the 90s. What's the connection between the strength of the family and sharing meals together?
Well, it's all connected to actually theology. So while a lot of people like to focus on the recipes, I like to focus around the people gathered around the table. And when I say it's connected to theology, it's because we got to consider why Jesus became food in the first place and why he entices people and invites people to a heavenly banquet. It is there that we actually experience salvation in our souls, but we have to get a foretaste of that around our own domestic church's altar, which is the dinner table.
And that's difficult. You know, life is so hectic these days for a lot of families. What are your tips for parents who want to do this regularly, get together for meals regularly with the whole family, but can't seem to work it into their busy schedules?
Well, I always tell people that if you don't master your schedule, then the schedule masters you. We've got to actually look at this as a priority. It is not important. It is absolutely necessary. And so I'm speaking not just as a priest who likes to have fun with food. I'm speaking seriously as a shepherd who's trying to let families know that if you don't eat together, if you don't feed your children, then the devil will.
You include recipes in the book for dishes that families can make together, but you stress it's more important about the regularity of eating together than what specifically you're eating. How important is the consistency?
Well, the consistency is key because it lets people know systematically that the time that I'm spending with you is time that I'm committed to. You see, what we're trying to do is get families to have a conversation as to when we will be able to get together so that those other deeper questions like why do they even spend time with me get answered. And they spend time with you because they love you. And it might sound so simplistic, but it is the one thing that keeps families together.
You mentioned one of my favorite phrases in the book is supper heroes. Tell me where that inspiration came from. What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm a big superhero geek. I will admit it, simply because I believe that they are real and we call them saints. Saints deal with the supernatural strength of God to do incredible things in their ordinary lives. And so I firmly believe that the one who puts the food out on the table and the one who serves the meal, they truly are the heroes of our celebrations and the heroes of our family life. And so I just encourage families to make sure we're raising up superheroes who serve suppers.
Very good. Excellent. All right. Well, like I said, a lot of good lessons in the book. And obviously, like I said, the consistency of getting together with family is so important. Father Leo Patalinghug, host of EWTN's Savoring Our Faith and author of Saving the Family, The Transformative Power of Sharing Meals with People You Love. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Finally tonight, a note about our newscast. Lauren Ashburn, our anchor and managing editor of News Nightly, is leaving her role at EWTN. In a message sent to our team, Lauren says she has treasured the opportunity to work with her EWTN colleagues, but due to growing responsibilities at home, she needs to focus on her children. We thank Lauren for her service to EWTN News over these past 4 years. Our chairman and CEO, Michael Warsaw, says she also has our prayers and our best wishes. As for News Nightly, we'll still be here, committed to bringing you news from a Catholic perspective. So for all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, thank you for watching. I'm Wyatt Goolsby. Good night, and God bless.